My mantra is kind of like, I call it 3D, right? Do, delete, and delegate. Myself is, I do everything. I fix the coffee, I do the strategy, and so does everybody else, right? And also when you delete, it's kind of like, what is really important? Because you get a lot of tasks and you get a lot of actions. What is really important for the business and for people? I think when you are really good at delegate, you get people to grow, right? So I think it's not just me as a driver, it's everyone.
Welcome to the Business Developer Podcast with Sujay, a source of inspiration for business developers. By listening to this podcast, you may gain some ideas, inspirations, or food for thought towards your own journey of developing your business successfully, now or in the near future. Thanks to each one of you who liked the previous episode with Anders Ingves, wherein we brought focus on people. Business is all about people, and when businesses focus on the growth of its people, then the growth of the business comes along with it. We also brought up topics at the intersection of sports and business, and the learnings that could be drawn into business from the sports domain. In this episode, we shall learn from the immensely rich journey of a lifelong business developer, Öjje Holt. Öjje has been a business developer since he was a teenager, always on the move, never gets tired, and practices the philosophy of get it done. He has been associated with Microsoft, Spotify, Kinnevik, aCast, to name a few. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our guest, Öjje Holt. Hello Öjje, welcome to the Business Developer Podcast. Thanks for taking out time to join this episode.
Thank you very much, sir. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you for having me.
No, it's my pleasure to Öjje. Just to give you a brief about this podcast, this is a source of inspiration for business developers. So I look to invite experts like you to come here, share your experience, to motivate and give some learnings back to the community of business developers here.
Okay, I do my best. I do my best.
Sure, looking forward to it. Thank you, Öjje. So to get started, can you help us and the listeners learn about you?
How many minutes do you have? Do you have hours or minutes? I'm fairly old nowadays, man. I can give you a short recap, right? So I'm 50 plus now, but I think my red thread throughout my career has been sales and marketing and PR, I think, and to work with people. I think that would be one of the benefits. Doesn't matter which company you work for, right? So I had a pleasure and opportunity to work for great companies such as Spotify, Apple, Microsoft, and so on, right? Which is kind of amazing, right? But I think the last 10 years, I've been more into the entrepreneurial side. I have started my third company, which is great. So, I mean, even if you like working for these big, amazing companies, I think it's even more exciting to actually sit in the driver's seat yourself, right? I don't know what to say, but a long career. You can also find me if people are interested and want to reach out. You find me on LinkedIn as well. I think it's a great tool to network.
So that's great, Öjje. I think this is quite a good background that speaks a lot because you've worked in established technology companies like Microsoft, Apple, Spotify, and then started as an entrepreneur. But how does your journey begin from since you became an adult? Can you take us? How did you get into this business development roles? What excites you?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit unusual because if I look at my own career, I don't have like an academic background. I went to the high school and that's about it, right? When I meet people, usually they come from, they have MBAs and they go through Côte and stuff like that, right? So my school is probably the school of life, right? I think one of the benefits with that, you become really street smart, right? So hands-on I've always been very much hands-on and I'm not very hierarchic and I try to lead by examples, not by word. By doing that, kind of like do a great job, hopefully, and you get connected and you get a good reputation and suddenly you get a new opportunity to work somewhere else and then it kind of like, goes on from there, right?
That's certainly a difference you say, and you have learned in the school of life. If you can take your memories back to quite many years back, because I feel many listeners could be in that kind of a situation. You have worked in established technology companies, Microsoft, Apple, Spotify. Such an exciting journey, that too. So, what motivated you to jump onto a ship again, back to start something on your own?
Well, it is different, right? I think it's tougher. I think when you do have your own company as a startup, you kind of like work 24/7, right? I think the myth is like, oh, this is so cool and great, and it's hard work, man. But what I really excites me is kind of like because you do everything, right? When you work for companies such as Microsoft or Apple, it's kind of down to execution of other strategies, right? Now I actually can sit down and say, what's the strategy for Acamp? And not just doing the strategy, but actually implement it, right? So you do the strategy, you do the tactics, and you actually have to take the full responsibility for the actual outcome, right? That's what's so cool. Sitting in your office, get this great idea, great strategy plan, execute it and see the results kind of like a few days, a few weeks later, right? I think I have a hard time seeing myself going back to a big company, even if I love Spotify and Apple. It's great companies. But again, the ability and opportunity to, sit in the driver's seat and drive this big ship or big boat, or whatever you call it, right? And again, you also, I think another thing is you have the opportunity to actually create your own team, right? At the Acamp, me and Paul started, a year ago. It was just me and him, and now we are 5 people, 6 people actually, right? So how do you find them? How do you create your own team, and how do you create your own culture and your own values? And that's really gets me going. That's really gets me super excited.
That's cool. So, help our listeners learn about Acamp. What is this Acamp, and what really is the purpose for the existence of Acamp beyond just be profit oriented?
Yeah, it's not just about profit. I agree with you. I had an RV, a big van myself for like 5 years now. And even if I love to camp, which I really, really do, the whole infrastructure around it was kind of bad. Because I couldn't really search and find these unique, great places. And when you have an RV, you're not really keen to stand like these traditional camping sites with 100 other RVs, right? So a couple of years ago, these ideas start nagging me. We need to figure this one out. And I did some research. Can't find any similar platform or marketplace, right? So first of all, you have to make sure you get a good, better camping experience to search, find, book, and pay for these unique, great places and great experiences, right? At the same time, you really promote, local business and these local entrepreneurs. If you look at Sweden as an example, I mean the whole countryside is booming with local entrepreneurs. You have amazing restaurants, amazing farm shops, microbreweries, farmers, whatnot, right? So not just promote this local experience, but also it's actually a big gap also between supply and demand. So if you look at Sweden, I think you have 110,000 registered RVs, but you have only about 30, 40,000 places, right? You have a gap of 60 to 70,000, camping places. So if we can, add supply and inventory, not just are we, getting more happy and exciting users, campers, but we also give these local entrepreneurs and farmers and whatnot a great side income. So it's a win-win across the whole marketplace. And I think another initiative we are really focusing on is about sustainable tourism, right? I think it's kind of like a myth because you have these RVs, they're based on diesel, right? You drive around. But actually, if you look at the tourism, it's actually the best, way to have a vacation from an environment perspective. Compare this to take the boat, the ferry, take a plane, take the train. I mean, this is very, very low, effect on the environment, right? So it's actually really good for environment as well. And can you do that at the same time and also work close with people like Håll Sverige Rent and other and work with, allemansrätten and make sure people, take care of the nature. I think that's you're actually doing something good for Mother Nature, right?
Yeah, to bring another perspective here to connect it to the nature, it's connected to one of the previous episode where someone brought up, it's actually Maria Frickman, CEO of Isbeyond, who makes outdoor clothing for the kids.
Ah, cool.
I heard a really interesting perspective that if you have to make the future generations to care about the nature, you need to make them spend more time with the nature so that they appreciate the nature.
Ah,
So I see with your Acamp, with the RVs, if there are more families going out there, getting the kids more exposed to nature, that's another way where you are bringing in more sustainable oriented human beings for the future. People who love nature because they have spent more time in the nature.
absolutely. And we see, I mean, one of the biggest trends we have seen the last 4 or 5 years, regardless of ACAMP, is actually, especially the younger generation, they really want to come out and enjoy the countryside and nature, not just from a, eco environment perspective, but also from an, activity and a nature experience, right? So I think that's super important. I think, you have these crazy Corona times, which is, kind of crazy, but one of the few upsides is actually people have, I think, had more time now to actually explore their own, home turf, the countries. I mean, Sweden is an amazing place. Why do you need to jump on a plane to the Canary Islands in Spain when you can go to, all these amazing places in Sweden, right?
True, yeah, true. And wait, tell me now another aspect. I want to bring back the question to the purpose, not just profit oriented. It's about people and planet. And since you said you are in the driver's seat of developing businesses, in your plans and strategy, how much you are bringing everything together, people, planet, and profit, not just profit.
That's a big question. And as I mentioned briefly before, I think if people actually camp and enjoy, vacation by camping, I think that's a big, big advantage for our mother nature, right? I think you're doing the nature a big favor doing that. I think also when it comes to people, not just me camp, but I mean, the last couple of months, I met hundreds of amazing local entrepreneurs. They have restaurants that in middle of nowhere. They have like farm shops. They have, activity events, and if we can bring them more people and visits, and they're gonna bloom and flourish, and I think we can contribute to to have a lively countryside, right? Not just big cities like Stockholm, Gothenburg, Malmö, right?
And I think your business Acamp has a unique opportunity or unique position to create a flywheel effect between people, planet, and profit. Because if you are exposing more people to the planet, thereby you drive more profit. Profit not only for yourself but for all the other people like the local entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
So I think you can create a really good, positive, forward-looking loop between people, planet, and profit.
we have a vision. It's kind of like what he's saying. I mean, the vision for ACAMP is to become a sustainable tourism platform that empowers local business and rural communities, right? So can we have a great platform that's sustainable at the same time empower great local people and local business? I think that's a win-win for everyone, right?
Yeah, that's a great vision.
Yeah,
I think now you get on to executing it.
yeah.
So now coming back to then the execution side, maybe a little bit of maybe a twist to the question. You talked about you got into business to be in the driver's seat, but business is also about people. How many people can drive that vehicle? There can be only one person. How do you balance that being in the driver's seat but working with the team of people?
It's not just being one guy or one woman sitting drives it. Everyone does, right? My mantra is kind of like I call it 3D, right? Do, delete, and delegate. Myself is I do everything. I fix the coffee, I do the strategy, and so does everybody else, right? And also when you delete, it's kind of like what is really important because you get a lot of tasks and you get a lot of actions. What is really important for the business and for people? I think when you are really good at delegate, you get people grow, right? So I think they can, it's not just me at the driver's seat, it's everyone. We make sure we have great, clear, and crisp roles, and people have to take full responsibility for their own verticals and their own actions.
Yeah, that's really cool. Do, delete, delegate. Yeah,
I call it 3D. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, 3Ds. That summarize well how business developers and how business leaders should develop their business and work with a team. You might look at patenting this, Oye.
Yeah, perhaps I can take a patent on it. I had the opportunity to work with so many great leaders. I think one of the benefits with that, coming from Spotify and Apple and whatnot, right? It's one of the big learnings. I think be curious, right? So if you are curious, that's one of the skills, whatever you might say, you can have, right?
You're taking to the next point, actually, I wanted to bring up are those character traits of successful business developers. So you mentioned certainly one of those, be curious. I heard from you, need to work with people. Any other points that you would like to mention in your experience as what are the key traits of a successful business developer?
Absolutely, kind of like a cliche, right? But if you can lead by example and if you're not afraid to work hard, and I'm not the guy to sit in a big glass office and pointy fingers, right? I want to be out there. I want to talk to people. I want to establish relations and work with the team. I'm one of the team, right? So I think that's of course part of it. At the same time, I think it's really important to have very clear demands and expectations, right? So transparency, no bullshit, and this is what is expected from everyone. That's really important. Have a clear and crisp goal where everybody is aiming at, right? Don't forget having fun. I mean, it's actually true. It's actually true. How do you create this fun environment and the fun culture, and at the same time you can work hard and you can have clear goals and all of that, right? But if you don't have any fun, it's going to be very boring really fast.
Yeah, true. Good point shared, OJ. Maybe a difficult question then, OJ. You have been a successful business developer. You have learned through the school of life. I understand you have been also on board levels at different organizations. How does OA as a board member evaluate OA as a business developer?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think he's no bullshit. I think he's very open and honest with all, not just the success, which is probably easy, but I think it's harder to be open and honest with your failures and where you have challenges. How do you approach the challenges and how do you turn them around? I think that's really important. Do more and talk less. I mean, I'm not a big fan of huge PowerPoints and slides, and I mean, again, if you look at Acamp, I mean, the business idea or the business model is not unique. Hundreds or thousands have the same idea, right? But how do you take the idea from an idea to an actual company? So, action oriented and kind of like this doer mentality is super important, right? And I also think, one of the skills I think I have had throughout my career is to find the right mix of people, right?
I may share one of the interesting points that came up in one of my previous episode is that sometimes it might be counterintuitive or counterproductive that when you bring in a new team member, the overall performance of the team might go down if you do not have developed a good culture for that organization. What would be your thoughts and comments on that statement?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. That's important, right? To start from day one to have this culture of, which is me really important, that you actually have a full transparency. So especially when something is not going great, which of course is going to happen, it's happened all the time, right? But if you don't hide that, instead of put it forward, and we can as a team, help out and kick ass. Right?
Yeah, that's interesting thinking. You have gone through the school of life. You talked about so many things you have learned. But what's your thought on the topic of unlearning? Because unlearning something that you've already learned might be much more difficult because that's already part of our character.
Uh,
That's already part of how we do things, and you have been a doer. Have you experienced situations of unlearning that you had to do? Any thoughts and comments on that?
yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm not perfect at all. I think I probably have a tendency to sometimes to act. We talked about the doer mentality. I think sometimes I have my profile and my personality is probably a bit fast pace fast pacing guy, right? So sometimes I need to slow down and don't act so fast, and probably be a little bit more analytical and make sure I have the whole team with me, and probably listen a little bit more. So I think that's learning always going to have top of mind. We are all different, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm still trying to unlearn that.
And learning certainly difficult, right?
Yeah, it is. That's why I call habit, right? You should take years, right? But at least if you're aware of it, I think that's a good start.
Yes, true. It was a great discussion with you. Any thoughts you have in your mind that you would like to share with the community of business developers?
People can reach out. One of the things I try to do from time to time to share and build a great network. And if people have any, if they want to discuss or talk or have any whatever, if I can help out for this younger generation, I'm more than happy to do that. So don't be a stranger. Reach out.
That's such a nice, noble thought. I will certainly put your contact details in the episode notes. But as you said, for the business developer, the power of the network is one such power. Everybody should develop and leverage.
Yeah, I think also share your mistakes. I mean, nowadays, I think you have all these success podcasts and success stories, and that's great. But personally, I think it's even more exciting to actually see and learn from the mistakes people have done, right?
Yeah, true. And I think you spoke my words. That's one of the reasons I have brought up this business developer podcast rather than just sharing their success stories. I want to have that ground level discussion. It's like you and me chatting over a coffee, very open discussion, but everybody gets to listen into it and draw their own learnings from it.
I think that's great. I love it. Should have like instead of having this framgångspodden, should have like a mistakes-podden.
Yeah, true. That's what I try to do, that bring that up, and also helping others people to learn from the unlearning moments from others, like you said, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And thanks for sharing that. You have shared some of those mistakes and some things that you need to improve upon. Very good. So thank you, Oye, for coming here to this episode of the Business Developer Podcast. It was my pleasure talking to you. Thank you again for today.
Thank you very much. Keep on going. I really love your pod, and so great work, and take care, and talk soon, I hope.
Yes, sure. Thanks a lot for your feedback. Really good. Much appreciated. That means a lot for me to keep going on. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye. For a successful business developer, the team and the execution capabilities are the key success factors that I've gathered from today's episode. What have you learned? It is important to draw our own learnings from the life situations we face, even from listening to a podcast. One hack to increase or deepen our learnings from a podcast episode that I have heard from an avid listener is to share and discuss an episode with your friends or family members and be open to diverse perspectives. Give it a try and experience how it worked for you. Hope you could gain some ideas, inspirations, or food for thought towards your own journey of developing your business now or in the near future. Do give me a high five if you like this episode. I would also love to hear your feedback and suggestions for improvement. You have multiple channels to do so: LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, or email me directly. My contact information is in the episode notes. That's it for now. See you again in the next episode of the Business Developer Podcast. Stay happy, healthy, curious to learn, and remember, do, delete, delegate. Bye for now.